So again, we're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 12 through chapter 2, verse 26. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel and Jerusalem, and I applied my heart to seek and to search out by wisdom all that is done under heaven. It is an unhappy business that God has given to the children of man to be busy with. I have seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and a striving after wind. What is crooked cannot be made straight, and what is lacking cannot be counted. I said in my heart, I have acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who are over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceived that this also is but a striving after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure, enjoy yourself. But behold, this also is vanity. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of pleasure, what use is it? I searched with my heart how to cheer my body with wine, my heart still guiding me with wisdom, and how to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was good for the children of man to do under heaven during the few days of their life. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks and planted in them all kinds of fruit trees. I made myself pools from which to water the forest of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves and had slaves who were born in my house. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me in Jerusalem. I also gathered for myself of silver and gold and the treasure of kings and provinces. I got singers, both men and women, and many concubines, the delight of the sons of man. So I became great and surpassed all who were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me, and whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all my toil, and this was my reward for all my toil. Then I considered all that my hands had done, and the toil I had expended in doing it, and behold, all was vanity and a striving after wind, and there was nothing to be gained under the sun. So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who comes after the king? Only what has already been done. Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceive that the same event happens to all of them. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will happen to me also. Why then have I been so very wise? And I said in my heart that this also is vanity. For of the wise as of the fool there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. How the wise dies just like the fool. So I hated life, because what is done under the sun was grievous to me, for all is vanity and a striving after wind. I hated all my toil in which I toil under the sun, seeing that I must leave it to the man who will come after me, and who knows whether he will be wise or a fool. Yet he will be master of all for which I toiled and used my wisdom under the sun. This also is vanity. So I turned about and gave my heart up to despair over all the toil of my labors under the sun. Because sometimes a person who has toiled with wisdom and knowledge and skill must leave everything to be enjoyed by someone who did not toil for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. What has a man from all the toil and striving of heart with which he toils beneath the sun? For all his days are full of sorrow, and his work is a vexation. Even in the night his heart does not rest. This also is vanity. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also, I saw, is from the hand of God. For apart from him, who can eat or who can have enjoyment? For who to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he has given the business of gathering and collecting, or only to give to one who pleases God. This also is vanity and a striving after wind. This is the word of the Lord.
So as we head into week 3 of Ecclesiastes, he sums up last week's message in verse 14 where he says, I've seen everything that is done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity. Most Bibles translate this word, it's hevel in Hebrew, is either vanity or meaningless. But perhaps the best translation for this word, and he uses it all throughout Ecclesiastes to describe life, is breath or wisp of smoke. So you walk out on a frigid day, and you see your breath, it's there, and then it's gone. Getting at this fact that life, first, it's profoundly fleeting, and also like a wisp of smoke, you can't you can't control it. It's there, but you can't quite grasp it. It's often perplexing, sometimes painful. And so the message of Ecclesiastes is twofold. One, in a life that is hevel, so fast and often so perplexing and hard to understand, how can we walk with wisdom? And two, how can we enjoy life, even amid its fleeting nature and perplexing nature? Ecclesiastes, maybe more than any other book in the Bible, is the most explicit about enjoy this. Enjoy this life that you've been given. And so today we're going to continue to look at these themes of living with wisdom and enjoyment as Kohelet, the author, Kohelet translates as the teacher, goes on a quest for happiness. A quest for happiness or satisfaction. And as we go through this, it's especially in a more educated demographic like we're in, it's easy to walk through a passage like this as kind of like a fun classroom exercise or like a scintillating philosophical experiment. And I want to encourage us to really take this seriously, because where you believe you find happiness profoundly affects your enjoyment of God or not, and how you show up for others. I think in my own life, when my happiness is tethered to how my job is going, or how much me time I'm getting in a day, when either of those things, like my me time or my job, aren't going how I wish they were, my mood in a disproportionate way is affected, which then in turn affects how I treat my wife and my children, how I show up for other people. And so this is much more than a fun exercise or even just like, oh, I want to improve my mental health, so let me think about happiness. This really affects how we show up for people and how we experience God. So I hope that is a big takeaway for us. So let's look at this quest for happiness that Kohelet undergoes, and we'll just walk through a very simple outline for our sermon today. First, the quest for happiness. Second, what are conclusions he draws from this quest? And then number 3, what difference does this make in our lives? So the quest for happiness, what conclusions does he draw? And then what difference does it make in our lives? So first, a quest for happiness the author sets out on. And so let's start in verse 16 through 18. I said in my heart, I've acquired great wisdom, surpassing all who were over Jerusalem before me, and my heart has had great experience of wisdom and knowledge. And I applied my heart to know wisdom and to know madness and folly. I perceive this is also but a striving after wind. For in much wisdom is much vexation, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. So in this section, when he says, I've acquired great wisdom, here wisdom is getting across the connotation of growing in smarts and learning how the world works. So in modern language, he pursues education, right? So bright-eyed, bushy-tailed 18-year-old, he heads off to the best universities, takes the most coveted professors, has riveting conversations in college apartments and in those hole-in-the-wall taverns that only university towns tend to have. And what does he find after all of these conversations and acing his exams? He finds that it's, verse 17, vanity, hevel, a striving after wind. For in much wisdom is vexation or anger, and he who increases knowledge increases sorrow. How can increasing in education increase your anger or sorrow? Among many reasons, just consider these two. The more you learn about the world, the more you realize just how sad and broken it is without the ability to fix it. But how many young children are trafficked into untold sexual horrors? How many children die from preventable diseases and causes? This is why today, there are many polls you can read about Ivy League grads when you ask them, why do you feel so paralyzed and depressed despite your great educational upbringing? Often the response they get is because there are so many things wrong with the world and so little I can do about it. Just the more you learn, the more you realize how broken the world is. And second, how can more education lead to sorrow, vexation? Well, David Brooks, a well-known journalist, he writes about this in his book, The Second Mountain. He says, if you as a parent, make academic success the main thing for your child, huge temptation in this area. what happens to your child? They get really good at the game of academic success, right? Which means they're little prepared for life's inevitable ambiguities and curveballs that are thrown at them. But also they fail to develop the deeper skills of relational connection. How do you give and ask for forgiveness? How do you break up with somebody without breaking their heart? They fail often to develop resilience. And many of these other important life skills, also like what is my deeper purpose more than just acing the next exam and getting into a good college? All of which make you make you a person of greater substance and joy, not just for yourself, but for the people you're in relationship with. And so Kohelet's saying, don't believe the lie that academic success will lead to a full, happy life, whether it's for you or your children. Okay, so first stop, quest for happiness, education. Second stop, chapter 2, verse 1. I said in my heart, come now, I will test you with pleasure. Enjoy yourself. But behold, this also was vanity. So if GPA and a good school won't do it, he goes after pleasure or good vibes. And here he tries it all. In verse 10, we're told, whatever my eyes desired, I did not keep from them. So he has the means to do everything, to go to the best wineries, to travel to the best vistas. He laughs until he's hoarse. And what does he find? Verse 1, behold, this also was hevel. It turns out that, isn't this fascinating? Being happy doesn't make you happy. Isn't that weird? My first memory of this experience was Christmas Day in the evening. I still do, love Christmas. My classmates called me Christmas boy. And great for reasons that I will not share from up here. They called me Christmas boy. And I still remember, I don't remember how old I was, 5 or 6. So it's, the sun's setting, my older brothers go off to a sleepover at their friend's house Christmas night. I can't go because I'm not old enough. The final guests leave our house, and I go up to the bathroom to brush my teeth just in the warm glow of that little light socket Christmas tree that's plugged in, and I felt so sad, right? Because thinking tomorrow's now just another Thursday morning, and the decorations are going to come down, and then I have to go back to school. If I had known the word hevel, I would have said hevel. Because the thing is, pleasure is real and feels really nice. And it is so fleeting, and often you end up feeling a deeper ache than before you had it, the pleasure. So what Kohelet's saying here is you can experience the best vibes you want, whether that lasts for a week or for 10 years. Whether yours is the more crude type, right? Night you don't remember, or who you did what with, or you're the more sophisticated type where you enjoy fine dining and the opera, or maybe you just enjoy the simple pleasures of a warm hearth and songs over drink with a friend, or just a simple meal with loved ones in a home. Eventually Monday morning will come and you'll have a deeper ache than before, right? Metaphorically or literally, hevel. Okay, so we've tried education, we've tried pleasure. Next up, we go to work, chapter 2, verse 4 through 7. I made great works. I built houses and planted vineyards for myself. I made myself gardens and parks. I made myself pools from which to water the forests of growing trees. I bought male and female slaves. I had also great possessions of herds and flocks, more than any who had been before me. Okay, so let me try now success. Production. And the thing is here, he is actually able to finish the projects he envisions. What is that like? And what does he conclude after accomplishing more than we could ever hope for? Verse 18, I hated all my toil. Why does he hate all his work and productivity? Well, just at least for today, consider the sheer pointlessness of it when all is said and done. So I came across this quote by Leonard Woolf, who is maybe known for being the husband of the great Virginia Woolf. But he himself was no slouch. He was a renowned political theorist, and here's what he said at the end of his career. I see that I have achieved practically nothing. The history of the human anthill during the past 5 to 7 years would be the same as if I had played ping pong instead of sitting on committees and writing books and memoranda. I have therefore to make a confession that I must have in a long life ground through between 150,000 and 200,000 hours of perfectly useless work. Consider when you think of the emails, the meetings, the projects you need to do in the next month, how much of it will matter in 100 years? How much of it will make a big difference in 2 years? And what Kohelet's saying is, you are chasing after a pot of gold that doesn't exist if you believe significance and any kind of lasting permanence will be found in your work, because you will grind for hours, lose sleep, lose time with friends and family and loved ones, and eventually all your projects will amount to nothing more than ash. Hevel. He starts off bleak. Don't worry, we'll get there, but let's also sit with what he's saying here, right? So education, pleasure, work. So then he moves on to verse 12 through 16, okay, where he talks about another aspect of wisdom. So I turned to consider wisdom and madness and folly. Then I saw that there is more gain in wisdom than in folly, as there is more gain in light than in darkness. The wise person has his eyes in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. And yet I perceive that the same event happens to all of them. Then I said in my heart, what happens to the fool will also happen to me. Why then have I been so very wise? For of the wise as of the fool there is no enduring remembrance, seeing that in the days to come all will have been long forgotten. So in this section, this word for wisdom gets across two ideas. One is skillful living. Another is doing good to others. So this is why I've summarized this section of skill that blesses. The kind of skill that blesses. So this is the kind of person that you go to when you're in a thorny relationship situation or facing just a hard decision. And they know, they give that beam of clarity. Where they give you the right question you need to be asking or what you need to say or not say. This is the person with outstanding business acumen who uses it not to become wealthy, but they keep a low salary, start a nonprofit to feed thousands, and the organization is successful. And what Kohelet says is there is a relative difference. Hence his comment, there's more gain in wisdom than in folly. So there is a relative difference between the person who works so hard to bless others and the narcissist who only lives for themselves. But in the absolute sense, how distinct in life and how indistinct they are in death. So you can just imagine Kohelet standing before two gravestones in a graveyard. Picture yourself there. And he's looking at, and he knows both these people. One was a dear friend who loved others well, who was there for him and devoted he's one of those people at a funeral where you can actually say, this person bled for others. And then the other person was an addict who did nothing but live for themselves and made the life miserable for anybody who was in relationship with them, especially those who shared a roof with them. And he's looking here and now, not only are they both in the ground, but wind and weather over time are going to wipe away the etchings on the gravestones, and eventually, no one will remember who they were, what they did. They are the exact same, right, 100 years from now. And so for you, whether you work so hard to bless other people and serve them, in the end, you're no different than the self-absorbed narcissist who just creates pain and misery for other people. Hevel. Education, vibes, work, skill that blesses, Hevel. This is his quest for happiness. So what does he conclude? What are some conclusions from this? First is what you might expect. Verse 17. So I hated life. Yeah, if you have the sobriety and you're a thinking person to understand life this way, when you realize you're not that important, you will die and be forgotten. Nothing you can try grabbing in this life will give you any kind of untouchable happiness. Unless you screen it out, you will fall into resentment or despair, as Kohelet does. And so here, first I encourage you not to hold this at arm's length, because if you do, you can't get the next conclusion that Kohelet comes to. We have to look this fact in the face, because, leading to the next conclusion, Kohelet's not a cynic, but he wants us to sit with this seriously so that we can hear the next conclusion, which is in verse 24 through 26. I'll start with verse 24 through 25, where he says, "There's nothing better for a person that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God," right? The only time he's brought in God before was with like a kind of oblique accusation in chapter 1. But now he brings in God, right? And he says, this is from the hand of God, for apart from him, who can eat or have enjoyment? What? So is life hevel and misery, or is life to be enjoyed and from the hand of this supposedly good and gracious God? And the key is, if you remember, so if you're new today or coming for the first time, one of the things that the author of Ecclesiastes is doing is he alternates looking at life through different stories in a building. And on the first floor is taking God out of the picture and just viewing things on strictly human terms. And up until now, everything we've read and looked at has been on the first floor, taking God out of the picture. And what he's saying is, yes, if this world is not created and sustained by a gracious God, if you do go after happiness through what you can control, obtain, manage, and make it about you, you will come to this conclusion. And then here he goes now to the second story, the second floor of the building, overlooking the same territory, and he sees how everything changes when you realize that you in this world are made by a personal and good God. It doesn't cancel out the hevel nature, but you hold both together. And here's what he says next in verse 26. "For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner, he's given the business of gathering and collecting. For to the one who pleases him, God has given wisdom and knowledge and joy." Beautiful gospel verse, even though it may not seem like it initially. The question you should be asking is, okay, there's two categories here, the sinner and the one who pleases God. So how do I not be in the sinner category and go to the pleases God category? Is it through education? Is it through working harder? Having skill that blesses? Being a really good person to others? And the answer is as simple as it is difficult. It's none of these things, but to open your hands and receive the greatest gift, which is the gift of God through union with Jesus. And through Jesus, through his life and death and resurrection, you're united with him, which means what's true of Jesus is true of you, and what belongs to Jesus belongs to you, which means the same God who said to everybody who would listen, "This is my beloved in whom I'm well pleased," before he lifted a finger of productivity in his ministry, says the same thing to you. You want a picture of it? I was thinking about how multiple times a day, one of my children, it always happens when I'm cooking and have stuff all over my hands and I'm in the kitchen. I hear this, "Daddy, look, Daddy, look." And depending on my mood, I don't always respond right away, like hoping they'll get distracted and move, but they don't. "Daddy, look." Okay, so rinse my hands, turn off the faucet, dry my hand, walk around. Yes, to which they want to show me something maybe not the most exciting. And so, I go back, get back to what "Daddy, look, Daddy, look." Rinse, lather, repeat. And this used to, on some days, annoy me until I realized that he just wants to know the same thing I want to know. That someone I love and admire also love It admires me. And you know who loves and admires you more than anyone else in the world? The one who made you and gave his life for you. I recently read a definition of love is when you're with someone and they get the sense of you're thinking, I'm so glad you exist. And you know that's what Father, Son, and Holy Spirit think about all day with, I am so glad you exist. And I always enjoy being with you. I loved giving up my life for you. I loved rising again from the dead for you and being with you today, now, and in this life to come. I'm so pleased with you. And so what this does for us is third conclusion, right? Life is hevel, and we have the pleasure of God, which means, third conclusion now as we bask in the pleasure of God, we're free to enjoy all these things in life for what they are, gifts. You know what's fascinating? He doesn't say, all right, so the answer is stop caring about education, stop working, stop going after pleasure. So one pitfall is, the kind of self-indulgence where we just run after these things. We need to hear it. But another is a kind of religious austerity where we believe that God doesn't want us to work hard or to have pleasure and enjoy the good things in life. And so when we look to all these created goods to give us what only God can, we sour them, but we enjoy them as gifts. Then this changes everything, which leads to point 3, what difference does this make in our lives? And it's, as we know we have the pleasure of God, we're free to enjoy this life. Let me try to make this as practical as I can. So education. It's no longer the means by which you try to feel important, or Lord forbid, you try to make your kids successful and important. But instead, it's a means of exploring this wild and precious world that God has not only made, but given us the ability to understand. And education is now mainly just a means by which we grow in understanding this world God has made. But what a thing that is. Pleasure, it's now no longer, I need this experience, or I need my Saturday afternoon to go this way, or I need my Friday night to go there, or I need this travel, or I need to move here, right? Or I can't be happy. This fun thing that I'm having, it's not happening for the duration I want, or this happens a lot at family gatherings or in the way that I was hoping it would happen. Instead, when moments of pleasure come, we receive them for what they are, gifts. John said I could share this. He was telling me this week how he had one of the most disturbing dreams of his life, which wasn't what I thought it was going to be. But he said everyone was throwing him a birthday party, but all his senses were gone. He couldn't smell anything, taste anything, any of the desserts or foods. He couldn't hear it. And everybody showing him gratitude, he couldn't feel any of the joy that was being directed his way. And he said, this was so terrifying, having just all feeling just numbed. And what he pointed out was, it was a good observation, is like, this is what life would be without God. You know, pleasure we experience, this isn't just an impersonal accident, but pleasure we experience is a gift that God wants you to have. As we were having our meeting, I'm eating a lunch that I made, and John was just like, you realize you couldn't even be tasting that amazing ABC without God. And I was like, you're right. God wants you to laugh too hard and too long with your friends. He wants you to enjoy good food and drink as you await the even better meal with Jesus in the life to come. And as you learn that any sensation that's pleasurable is a gift, it fills all of these moments with so much more meaning. So you're just like, wow, this feeling, this pleasure, God, thank you. Thank you for this gift of being alive to the goodness that is now. And as you begin to see these things, yes, there is pain and sadness to behold, and there are gifts to enjoy. One doesn't cancel out the other. And as we learn to see the world this way, as we have the pleasure of God, you begin to see the goodness of God everywhere. as a bird lands on the mailbox. Or as I was walking with my children this week, seeing two turtles awkwardly plod after each other into a lake. It was hilarious. I was like, this is a gift of God. That first sip of a latte. If you don't know, we can't be friends, right? The gift of your child, they're not a gift because of how they're behaving or how they're doing in school. They're a gift, and no less because of the goofy things that they do. So just last night, I'm putting my kids to bed, exhausted, getting ready, thinking about this morning. And, I'm about to leave. My daughter's like, hey, can we do a game? And she wanted to play a role-playing game. So I'm like, okay, Steve, dig in here for these 10 minutes. And so we start playing. She's like, hey, Dad, yeah, you going to go on an adventure tomorrow? Yes, I am. Just say yes. That's the name of the game with playing with kids. Are you going to come across any giant spiders or wolves? Why, yes, I am, in fact. Are you going to defeat them with your sword? I'm like, why, yes, I am. What kind of father do you think you have? It's like kids are hilarious. These are gifts from God. He's saying, enjoy this. And as you enjoy these gifts, you enjoy God himself. My father-in-law, one of the most precious people on this planet alive to me. Last year, he gifted me a Ninja Creamy, which has changed my life. I use it every night I'm home, which means I make sure I'm home every night. And the thing is, when I use it, because it's a gift from him, I'm experiencing him through the gift. And it's him and my relationship to him that's actually, creamy, take it or leave it. He is who's precious to me. And so it is with God. The more you learn to receive these things as gifts, you get more of God himself. And so just for this week, what would it look like to take this mindset with you? Because what's so great about Jesus is you get to have it both ways. Big capital M meaning, knowing you have the pleasure of God and hope for this life and the next. But also, do you just really want to enjoy the big and little moments at meals and at listening to music and with friends and at work and the Monday through Friday now? You can have that too. And as you learn to enjoy these gifts and through them God, I think you'll also find not only is your joy enlarged, but the joy you can give to others. Let's pray.